Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second part of the What If Lori and Martinez Survived. This is part 2 of the story. Let's see where it goes from here. Let's just say that if you've read the comics up to volume 8 and 9, I'm just going to be real with you. A lot of events are about to change. For the worst and for the best for some cases. Or are the same. Anyways, let's begin. We start at the aftermath of when Michonne had tortured the governor and when he's barely alive after withstanding what she did to him. And then after that, he's healed, and then we see him informed about the destruction of the National Guard station. And so him and a few others go to drive and check out the scene. After hearing some gunshots off in the distance, they head straight to the Walmart, where, like in canon, they discover Bruce and his team all dead. Although, unlike in canon, Bruce was shot in the head, so instead of being alive and telling him that it was them, he's already dead, so it's just up to their guess whether this was Rick's group or not. The governor thinks it might be them, but doesn't know if they would have the weaponry or equipment needed to take down Bruce's team. But then he realizes something. The National Guard station had just blown up, which must mean that they scavenged it before blowing it up, thus explaining why they would have the weaponry to take down Bruce and his team. Although, unlike in canon, they don't find the tire tracks from their vehicles, so they leave the scene not knowing where they went. Although a few days later, some of their Woodbury scouts who investigate the area further find the tire tracks and they lead them back to the prison. Although when they get back, the governor still waits a few more weeks before attacking so that the group will be sloppier and they won't be able to be as prepared for them. Eventually, we get back to where we left off at Volume 7 with the attack. The governor's army approaching, with him yelling to kill them all. It starts with them shooting with all the walkers at the fences first so they can get a better view inside. After they take care of that, and after scaring most of the group, the governor gets on his microphone and starts demanding his demands to the group to get rid of all their supplies and leave it at the gate for them to come in and take it all, and they'll let them be. Although this is when one key difference happens, as earlier on in the story, when Martinez and Andrea were given their riot armor up in the guard towers, Martinez says that it might be more optimal to not wear the helmets, so she can get a better view and accuracy on her targets. As yes, the helmet would keep her safe, but if something happens, like she needs to get a clear shot, and the helmet gets in the way, who knows what could happen. So, due to this, unlike in canon, when she goes to aim for the governor, unlike in canon where because of the helmet she missed and shot his chest, she isn't wearing the helmet, which means when she shoots, she gets a direct headshot on his head, blowing that evil bastard's brains out. After the shot is heard, silence is heard from both teams, and as they all watch the governor's lifeless body fall off the front of the tank into the grass. Gabe is furious after seeing his leader dead, and thus tells them to open fire, especially at the guard tower. But they're surprised when they hear gunshots from another guard tower so soon. It's Martinez who is waiting for the right moment to strike. Unfortunately, due to the previous gunfire, walkers from behind them start to approach. Thus, half the Woodbury soldiers are preoccupied taking out those walkers instead of taking care of the group. And due to this, a lot more people from the Woodbury army die in this first attack, as so many of them are distracted that Andrea is able to get a better aim thanks to only there being a few of them firing at the prison. Thus, after they take care of the ones shooting towards the prison, they begin picking off the targets who are firing at the walkers. When Gabe notices this, he knows that they might need to retreat and fall back, and this fight is a loss. Just like in canon, though, most of the stuff goes the same. Axel gets shot in the arm, and eventually it's revealed that Rick got shot in the gut. And Andrea gets that headshot, almost killing her. Although, due to Martinez being in the other guard tower, he's still opening fire, so when Glenn enters up guard tower when he thinks she might be dead, they still have 2 snipers firing. And then when Andrea gets back up, now they have 3 snipers, which are just mowing down the Woodbury soldiers. They're not standing any chance. Many of the soldiers are taken out, and many of them are injured. Gabe just calls for retreat. He was thinking about driving the tank over the fence, but just there's not enough of them. They're losing this fight head on, so they retreat. So yeah, this victory goes more or less the same, actually better for the group, as not only are more Woodbury soldiers dead this time, but the governor also got taken out. So they're in a much better position than they were in Cannon. Although some things do remain the same. Those who were injured were healed, but Dale still decides to leave and take some of the group with him. Him, Andrea, Billy, and Ben, and convinces Lori to take Sophia with them. And eventually Glenn and Maggie do go as well. Although everyone else who stayed in Cannon stays, including Martinez. He knows that it'd be best if he stayed to give them better cover fire. As now with Andrea and Glenn gone, they still need at least one good sniper. Although Billy is still here, so they still have 2 snipers that they can have at the guard towers. Eventually, Michonne and Tyrese go outside in their riot armor to go chase after the surviving Woodbury army. Martinez wishes them farewell. Just like in Cannon, they get the drop on a couple of the soldiers, but then are spotted. Although this is when something different happens, as unlike in Cannon, where after they captured Tyrese, the governor decided to bring him back to the prison and execute him in front of everyone. Gabe is just pissed off, and so just has Tyrese executed right there and then by his own hands. Thus, unlike a Cannon, he dies in front of all the soldiers instead of Rick's group. This does get the Woodbury soldiers a bit more eerie of Gabe's leadership, as now they just watch them decapitate a prisoner right in front of all of them. He argues that this asshole may have been one of the ones in the guard tower. Thus, this was a justified death. Besides, with as many of them they killed, one of their fighters being killed just makes everything better for them. Michonne sees all of this and is full of anger and so attacks. She goes in, although not hating Gabe nearly as much as the governor, but still hating him for just killing her boyfriend just now. Does hold him at gunpoint, just like the governor. And just like the governor, she misses her shot, but she does manage to kill 2 Woodbury soldiers and cut off the arm of another. By this point, Gabe has just had enough and decides to just go and destroy the prison once and for all, taking the remaining soldiers and telling them that they're going to give them everything they got until there's none of them left, or until there's none of Rick's group left. Meanwhile, back at the prison, Martinez is helping with their preparing an escape route. Unlike in Cannon, they do manage to get the prison buses in place, so they have some cover in case they start firing on them while they're not ready. But it's not like it matters, as the Woodbury army arrives over the horizon, and that tank is ramming straight towards the fence. But this is what Rick and especially Martinez wanted, as right as the tank is about to breach the fences, a massive explosion goes off, and the tank gets one of its treads absolutely ripped to shreds and destroyed. As unlike in Cannon, where they had the grenades they got from the National Guard station and the guard towers, Martinez came up with a better idea, plus with them knowing about the tank now, made a trap for the tank so that when it would come through, it would get destroyed by the grenades. But this also did more favors for them, as one of the other military trucks got destroyed also in the explosion. However, the second one didn't, but did manage to get tipped over by the explosion, but it does slam it right into the fences, cutting straight through the first layer and heavily damaging the second layer of fencing. The explosions also damaged a good chunk of the fence as well, given that they were close enough to the fence that they did do some damage. After everyone recovers from this, the gunfire continues. Although without any good vehicles to ram through the fence now, they are just out there hoping that they can just take out all of Rick's people. But they're just being slaughtered out there. There already isn't that many Woodbury soldiers left, but now they're just getting wiped out. Thanks to Martinez and Billy especially. They're mowing the last of the forces down. Before Gabe can give any more orders, he is suddenly shot through the head, as we look to see Andrea up on a hill on top of the RV sniping from a distance. One of the Woodbury soldiers see this, and retaliation hops in one of the remaining cars and rams straight into the RV, killing himself and injuring Andrea, putting her into a coma, but she does survive this. By this point, there's only 10 remaining soldiers left, and their leaders are dead. The only people that were good in charge are all dead. So Lily decides to just cut their losses and retreat and get back to Woodbury. It's not worth the fight. Thus, the remaining 10 soldiers hop in what's left of their cars and drive away, never to be seen again. Rick's group celebrates this victory, but unfortunately, this battle did not come without its losses, as 3 lives were lost today on Rick's side. Those being Herschel, Patricia, and Axel, who were all shot in the process during the gunfight. Rick acknowledges Andrea and says they need to get her out, but before they can even go out there, they look and they see Michonne walking towards the gate, dragging Andrea. They open the gate and let her in, and they get Andrea into some help by Alice. And that's when they begin to dig 4 graves later that day. Those being for Tyrese, whose death was found out thanks to Michonne, and the other 3. But this is a good thing for the group, as this victory has secured most of these characters' survival. And thanks to Alice being there, when Rick starts feeling sick, he isn't slipping out of comas, leaving Carl defenseless without him, pretty much, for the next, volume. So, yes, Carl does not mature, but at least he's not in any danger. So for now, Carl's the same. Unfortunately, the losses from this battle has caused some characters to suffer, such as Billy, as now he has to grieve with the fact that he just lost his father, and he couldn't save him. It's taking a toll on him, but luckily Alice is providing comfort for him. Although one thing that is on his mind often is Maggie. How will she feel when they have to tell her? If they ever find her again. Who knows where they went? And Michonne is also dealing with her own problems now that Tyrese is dead, and after having watched him get decapitated in front of her, unlike in canon. Although life is good for most characters, Rick especially, as unlike in canon, his whole family is still alive, as he didn't have to witness Lori and Judith dying in front of him. So he's in a much better mind state as of now, along with Carl as well. Thus, the Grimes family is pretty happy right now. Eventually, Andrea wakes up from her coma, and when Rick and them ask where the others are, she tells them that they all went back to Herschel's farm to stay until everything was good, or to see if the war would ever end good. Andrea says that she needs to get back there and tell them all. They're probably worried sick. It's been days since they last saw her. Almost a week now, it feels like. Rick says she could take one of the prison buses, as they don't really have any other cars. And besides, now that the RV's gone, when she brings them back, they're gonna need one vehicle to bring them all back in. Andrea thanks him, but says that for now, when she goes back, they're gonna stay a little longer, as they did defeat the Woodbury army, but there still was a good chunk of them that survived. They could do another attack. It's just not worth taking the risk just yet. Rick understands this, and eventually Andrea, when she's healed enough, gets on the bus and drives away, where she'll be gone for a while now. Rick is happy that at least they're all okay, but he is sad, though, about how when she goes back, she will have to tell them about what happened. He knows that Maggie probably won't be so okay after finding out what happened to her father. And he is right, as when Andrea returns to the farm, she tells them all. Maggie is heartbroken to hear about her father dying. Although, unlike in canon, she's not as depressed, as her brother is still alive, so at least she has one family member left from the old world before this all happened, for now. Back at the prison, things may be going well after the attack, but it only takes a couple days for things to get bad again. As due to all the noise from the gunfire and explosions in the area recently, lots of walkers from all around Georgia and in the area have been lured towards the prison and the surrounding areas. Thus, the prison is becoming even more overwhelmed by walkers. Every day, it feels like small herds arrive every day. The fences can barely hold them up, but it's even worse as a lot of these walkers are building up right along the destroyed line of fence. As of now, the third row is completely lost. Thus, they keep the gate open just in case they need to get out. They might as well keep it open, it's not like it matters. But then a few days later, when Martinez is out on a scouting walk, when he's checking the perimeter, he hears a loud crack noise, and he turns to see the second row. A little spot that a lot of them were building up that was heavily damaged has broken through, and the walkers are flooding into it. Thus, now there's only one line of chain link fence keeping them away from them. Martinez is horrified and informs everyone. Rick isn't sure if the fence will hold, so prematurely has everyone prepare for an evacuation. But once they see that the fence will hold, they calm down. But Rick knows that this is bad. They need to do something about these walkers. Glenn's idea about stabbing them to the fence will work, but there's so many of them building up that eventually they won't even be able to reach some of the walkers, as there'll be bodies in the way. Martinez, though, does have an idea to how to keep more of them from filling up into the fences, at least at a slower pace. He says that he should plug up the hole in the fence with one of the prison buses they have. It'll be big enough to block it off so that no more of them can enter through there. Then only more can enter through the gate, which he could close. As yes, it would be a good idea to keep that third gate open, but At the same time, allowing them to just pile in through that as well is only going to add more to their problems. It's just better to risk it. Besides, if they do need to make an evacuation, ramming through that gate with one of the buses, the buses can handle that about breaking down, so they need to ram through it, they could. Rick says it's a good idea, but does say it will be risky doing that, as he's gonna have to be out there by himself, as they need as many people as they can to distract the walkers so they don't go immediately attack him as soon as the bus is blocked off. Martinez understands and agrees. Thus, when the plan begins, he drives in immediately. Although Martinez does realize one thing, he probably should have wore some riot armor before this. He's not in his armor. He wasn't thinking. He just got on the bus as soon as Rick said it was okay and they had the plan. Martinez doesn't know what he was thinking. He just knows that he had to plug up this hole before more went in. As he knows that that this is the only way they can plug up the hole. They don't have any manpower to do this. They don't have enough. Thanks to Axel and Tyrese being dead, two of their toughest guys. Now it's just Tim and Rick. And Rick's missing a hand, so it's not really too good. And Billy's just a kid. He doesn't exactly have that much strength in him to really help in forging a new fence, really. Martinez, after plugging up the hole, gets out of the bus and runs for dear life to get back inside. So many walkers are piling next to him now. He's having to push and shove so many of them out of his way. There's way too goddamn many of them. He barely gets through the second gate, thankfully leaving it open. But when he's trying to get through the third gate, a massive group of walkers is cutting him off. And almost a group of them gets inside the prison. But luckily, thanks to Rick and them, they're able to shoot and kill most of them. Thus, Martinez is able to hop in, and they close the gate. Martinez is pissed off at himself, saying that he wasn't able to close those gates, which means now the second fence, more of them will start filling in. Rick says it's okay. They'll figure something out. But for now, this is just the best they got. And that they just need to hold the line until they can figure out something. Rick and Lori stay up those next few nights, scared out of their mind. Rick is just waiting for any moment for that fence to go down. And Lori the same. She's ready every night for a moment where she fears that she might have to run out with the kids. Thus, she's keeping Judith close to her so that as soon as that fence goes down, she has her arms, and they can just run out and then get Carl as well. But after a few days, everything seems to be good as the fence holds up, with Martinez every now and again trying to lure groups of them away from parts of the fence that have bodies building up to try to stab as many of them through the fence. Although it's tiring, even with Billy's help and Alice every now and again. Speaking of Alice and Billy, thanks to them getting close over the next few days with her trying to help him with his sadness over his father's death, they actually end up building a relationship with each other as they realize that there's just not many options left in this world. They don't act now, they may die alone. And thus, unlike the actual canon, they do get together in this timeline. So at least Billy has one good thing going for him right now. After that, we cut back to Herschel's farm where everyone is at. And one night, when Andrea is up on top of the barn, checking the area out, she fires a shot which wakes everyone up, and Dale and everyone runs outside to see what it is. She fired a warning shot at 3 people in a military truck that just arrived. Fearing that they might be Woodbury soldiers, she keeps her gun up, as she feels like they might be due to the military truck. When Dale goes out there, he manages to calm her down, and Dale asks some questions to these new people about who they are and where they came from. The 3 people introduce themselves as Dr. Eugene Porter, Rosita Espinosa, and finally, Sergeant Abraham Ford. Andrea continues to hold them up at gunpoint, but Dale does eventually finally get her to calm down and at least put it down before they get these people pissed. Then Abraham shows his strength by killing the walkers that were lured to the farm by the gunshots she shot at them. Glenn is impressed by what he's done. Eventually, after that, though, is all dealt with, Abraham gives the speech about them going to Washington because Eugene might know how to make a cure and how to solve all this, and how he knows how this all started. While it's a bold claim, Dale is interested and is more inclined to believe him, that maybe this guy might be telling the truth. The reason why he's less skeptical of them is because, unlike in this timeline, not as many people have died, nor have they run into as many bad people in this universe. Plus, he still has his foot, so he's not quite as eerie against dangerous things. Gunn agrees with him that they should check this out. Abraham is glad. It does say that they have more than enough room in their truck, plus their bus over here. And if they don't feel quite too comfortable with them, they can all stay in their bus while him and his group stay in their military truck. But says that if they're going to leave, they should leave in the morning. Dale does make, though, one suggestion. Is that they really think that they have enough manpower to do this. Abraham says no, as they probably won't, but it's better than nothing. Then Dale gets an idea, and he tells Abraham about Rick and the others back at the prison, and says how if they could get them to come along, they'll have more than enough manpower and people to get them to Washington, or anywhere really. Especially after what they've been through, they know how to survive against dangerous situations, especially if people are involved. Abraham is glad to hear this, and says that they'll go in the morning to go to these people, and afterwards they'll head straight to Washington as soon as they find out whether this Rick fellow and his group are willing to go. Dale asks why not now. Abraham says that's too dangerous. Plus, if this whole group has been recently attacked, who knows how many walkers could have been drawn by the noise. Thus, they should wait until morning, so to be safe. Better to be safe than sorry, right, old man? He says to him. While Dale, he's not exactly too happy about the comment, but he does agree. Morning comes, Abraham and his group get ready, and then Dale and everyone load up onto their bus, and they drive off towards the prison. Meanwhile, back at the prison, the third fence is still getting built up by walkers as they're completely filling up the fence line. There was just too goddamn many of them. Martinez can't even stab anymore at this point. He's just out. He's just tired. Billy and Rick have been coming out to help him, and some of the others as well, but it's just not enough. There's just too goddamn many of them. And one night, when Rick decides to go on patrol to give Martinez a break, that's when he hears it. The crackling of chains snapping, as he looks to see that one of the pillars of the fences has given weight and is bending down, snapping the chain link fence as the walkers are building up more and more until it will eventually collapse. Rick yells inside to get everyone ready to get on the buses, but for for Martinez, Billy, and a few others to stay behind outside and not get on the buses immediately, just in case they can maybe hold them off. Martinez agrees, and Billy go into the armory to get more weapons. Lori is preparing to get everyone on, but then she's asking that she cannot find Carl, and she's panicking. Meanwhile, outside, Rick is preparing his gun and everything. He has ammunition piled up outside on a cart, just in case something like this happened. However, all of a sudden, a gun is put on the table as he looks to see Carl holding another gun as well. Rick tells him to get onto the bus or the military truck, whatever one they're taking, and get out of there. Carl says no and says that they need as much help as they can get. He can shoot. He's done it before. He's killed walkers before. And if they're going to need help, he might as well be there. Besides, he tells his dad that he can outrun them. He's done it before. Rick, still sighing, knows he's right, and gives him a quick lesson on how to fire one of the guns he's going to use. Although Carl just decides to use his old pistol that he was given back in Atlanta. The two of them stand there, just like in season 4, when the fences start falling, and just like that season as well, the fences give way, and the group of walkers start piling into the actual prison. Rick and Carl begin opening fire, killing lots of them at a time, but they're becoming overwhelmed. They don't have enough guns or ammunition. That is until the sound of an assault rifle is blaring into their drums as walkers begin dying. Martinez and Billy have finally arrived and are giving them cover fire. The four of them stand there, opening fire on the group of walkers, killing them all. It takes a long time, almost 20 minutes, but eventually they run out of ammo, and by then there's only a few walkers left. Enough that they can just go up to them and stab them with their knives, or push them to the ground and stomp their heads in. Once it's cleared, and they're sure that no more walkers can get in, Martinez says it's now or never to close those gates, and so him and Billy run out there and close every single gate, killing every single walker that gets in the way. Rick and Carl are just tired, but share a look and a smile, and a little laugh as they're glad that they did it. Morning comes, and there's just so many goddamn bodies everywhere. The whole prison yard is just filled with bodies. Martinez and them start getting ready to start dragging the bodies across. Dragging them, but due to them running out of gasoline, but they have a problem. They don't have enough gasoline to burn all these bodies, as if they do, it will impact their generator. Thus, instead of burning the bodies, they decide to drag them all the way to a corner of the prison, where they just begin and leaving them there. But it's far enough away that they shouldn't smell it in the cell block. One day after they finish dragging the bodies, Martinez is beginning to go back in the guard tower again, as now he feels more comfortable going back up there now. He doesn't expect Woodbury to retaliate, but you can never be too sure. But one day, he sees a military truck approaching the prison. And preparing to think that it's Woodbury, he gets his rifle out. But just before he can begin firing, he sees the prison bus they gave Andrea. And he sees in the driver's side is Dale. And looks and he sees everyone that left the farm on there. After seeing that it's them, he runs down, gets Billy, and they open the gate and let them in, knowing that if these 3 people in the military truck are with them, they can't be bad. Plus, Martinez doesn't recognize them from Woodbury, so they might be not from Woodbury. Once they open the gate, everyone gets outside, including everyone on the bus. They all reunite. Before Rick can ask who these people are, Abraham gets out. They're looking around, especially at the damaged fence and the destroyed military trucks and tank outside the front, and says, "Man, you people look like you've seen the shithole that's hell." Rick demands to know who these 3 are. Abraham gives the usual spooge about the situation and asks if they want to join them to head to Washington. Rick, after talking to Lori and knowing that this prison is just not the best option to live at right now, they decide to go with them. Everyone. Well, except for one, Martinez. Rick asks what does he mean he doesn't want to go with them. And Martinez says something that absolutely flabbergasts Rick. He says to Rick that he thinks he wants to go back to Woodbury and try to convince the survivors to join them and head to Washington as well. Rick is flabbergasted and says he's out of his mind. Those psychos tried to kill them. But Martinez reminds him that Governor, Gabe, and Bruce were mainly the 3 psychos at Woodbury, and most of the other psychos probably got killed during the attack. Most of the people there aren't killers or dangerous. They probably didn't even want to do this, but knew that they had to because they were manipulated. He knows the governor manipulated them. There's no other reason that many of them would have agreed to do this, especially with the genocide of another community. Rick still says it's a bad idea, but Abraham chimes in and says that the more the merrier. It doesn't matter. If you think these people are willing to join you and join us, then by all means, go to this Woodbury and gather as many of those goddamn bitches as you can. Martinez agrees. And eventually Rick does as well. Martinez says his farewells and says that he'll meet them in Washington. But before he goes, Rick takes a map and writes down a location, saying that this is a location that they will have to pass through. Once they're sure of what direction that they'll take to get to Washington from there, they'll leave a circle on the map, showing where this place is. And then at whatever next big location they stop at, once Martinez and his group reach there, he'll write another message. He'll do this for every goddamn place they have to that has a map that they stop at. That's on the way until Martinez finds them again. Martinez takes one of the prison perusers and heads straight to the Woodbury, while everyone else loads up into the bus and in the military truck. They drive off, with Rick giving one last look at the prison as they drive off. We end right in the grass in front of the prison, right at the governor's corpse, with walkers devouring it. And that is the end to What If Martinez and Lori Lived, Part 2. Part 3, we will go over the events of Volume 10 and 11, which, if you know what happens in those, will be interesting, especially since in those next parts, Martinez isn't going to be there. I decided that in the next couple parts, Martinez might not be around for a bit, just so we can give Lori and a few other characters some screen time due to the events changing. But anyways, until Part 3, see you later.